Hello everyone, it's Kim Justice again. Now, last weekend I was given the opportunity to go to the awesome Retro Computer Festival at the Cambridge Centre for Computing History. This was filled with all sorts of people exhibiting stuff from their private collections, and I got to see the most amazing range of rare computers, all different sorts of things. We had clone systems, plotters, editing suite stuff, lots of awesome homebrew, and generally a lot of rare micros, consoles, a lot of the stuff that you don't often see on the shelves at the museum. So, I managed to film quite a lot of it, and if you're a fan of rare computers, you're going to watch this video, because it's going to blow your mind. So, our first little look at something is with our good friend, a friend of our mine and many YouTubers' channels, good old Quan from Asobitech. He had a lot of cool consoles on display, but one thing that particularly caught my eye at the start of the show was this weird Australian console clone. Let's have a look into it, shall we?
This is Police Jump, which is their version of... Can you guess which game it is?
That looks like Donkey Kong to me.
It is indeed.
Police Jump.
Comes on these cute little cartridges.
Oh wow, okay.
Kind of reminiscent of, I guess, of Intellivision, I guess?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
You inspired those.
Yeah. So, a bunch of clone console games. It's about as powerful as a ColecoVision, I guess. And a bit of VTech of all companies.
Yeah. So, anyone find out? So, who is Dick Smith? Do we know?
Some Australian guy.
Some Australian fella.
I think maybe Adrian knows who Dick Smith is. Adrian, do you know who Dick Smith is?
Dick Smith? Yeah. He was a famous Australian entrepreneur.
Ah, okay.
Rebadged anything that he thought might be popular in Australia in the 80s.
Alan Sugar.
So, kind of, yeah.
Australian Alan Sugar.
Australian Alan Sugar. The more famous ones he did were like the Arca Video Genies.
Oh, okay.
Which was, he sold as Dick Smith System 80. And pretty much, if he thought he'd make money off it, he'd stick his name on it and put it in the shops. And he's still going. He's
still going, okay.
He's doing some amazing stuff, and he's a proper firebrand these days.
Oh, I have to look him up.
Yeah.
What's a video, isn't it?
Could be worth a video, yeah. I mean, I can't think of... Not many other people put their own name on a console. I mean, it could be like the Alan Sugar Amstrad.
Yeah.
I suppose Sinclair, but...
Sinclair and Amstrad. This is the visual badging, ColecoVision.
Yeah. Now, sadly, because of it being Australian, generally weird, the system did not exactly play well with our monitors here, so this is about the best picture that we got out of the Dick Smith Wizard. But still, Quan had plenty of other cool stuff, as did this table here. This had a lot of rare computers here. As you can see, there's a nice little colour genie. A Sanyo personal computer is here with a nice little tunnel display. Ooh. Don't get into a trance, everyone. A Dragon 64 here, and that teletext display is actually real. That's running something called Nextel, which has kind of been recently set up. The Spectrum Next uses it, as do a bunch of other things. We have these nice big boxy Sharp machines here, running some sort of Defender. Someone's having a lot of fun with a bit of Defender there. The Cambridge Z88, Clive Sinclair's old laptop. Defender, well, someone's got a bit bored of it. But yeah, lovely computers, lows. A ZX81 here, actually no, not a ZX81, excuse me, a ZX Spectrum with some sort of music, a Roland attachment. And here, just past the SX64, couldn't help be attracted to this all weekend. This printing out punch paper, always a nice thing to capture on cameras as well. Certainly making a racket throughout the whole weekend, this was. Good lord, what an awesome monitor that is. That monitor's worth a few quid on its own. A baby. This is a kind of miniature recreation of a big old computer, one of the old classic ones that take up an entire wall or so. that I do believe exists in Manchester. And again, you'll notice I always like to capture something that's got a nice active display to it. That sort of thing tends to play well with me for the cameras. And here's something, a grid case, red and black. Some nice little Heathkit machines here. Again, lots of numbers. A lot of stuff at this expo, kind of looks like it should be on a 70 set. Oh no, this is an interesting one. This is something the museum's just recently got in. A whole load of Sinclair prototypes, including a pretty much one of a kind. That is a Sinclair ZX Spectrum prototype right there. An actual, real, proper prototype model. You don't exactly see those in the wild very often. Now, the 1970s office room, or rather the 1970s classroom room, kind of was where a lot of the homebrew people hung out. Here we have the Gigatron. A lot of people here showing off stuff that they've made, like this RC 2014 here. So, you know, lots of boards kicking about here if you wanted to see some computers in the nude and some nice graphic displays. Then this room was definitely for you. Especially this little bit in the corner here. I mean, again, when I say 1970s sci-fi set, just look at all this lot. All so many graphical displays. This, you know, this could fit into just about any strange film that's got some sort of director's interpretation of what a computer looks like. I love flashing lights like this. There's even a globe in ASCII text. You can't say fairer than that, can you? And that thing, that digital thing, PDP. So that's a simulator of a PDP-11 as the text goes. Again, some nice little homebrew knock-ups, and there's a lovely little nude shot. There was that yellow thing, I do believe is someone's kind of Frankenstein Commodore 64 sort of thing. And here we have a Commodore PET running the homebrew game Down. A game that looks very simple, but is actually quite addictive. Again, more nude boards, more flashing lights. I'm always going to capture that stuff. An Atari 1200 XL, anyone who loves Atari, you know, that sort of thing. And another thing that I do believe we're just about coming to, that there seem to be quite a few of. You saw a lot of ZX81s around, and a lot of custom ZX81 cases. I mean, some of them contemporary, some of them perhaps not. And there's a ZX81 in a kit form, in the original kit box that it came. So yes, there was a lot of these ZX81s falling about with a lot of actual nice cases, you know, for those who didn't want to use the old keyboard and that. Ah, here's something also interesting. Here we have kind of the computers or computer add-ons for the classic Japanese systems. We have the Nintendo HVC 007, which connects to the Famicom and allows you to do BASIC on that. There's the RX-78 from Bandai, and there's the Sega SK-1100, which connects to is that an SG-1000 or is that a Mark II? But again, they all allow you to basically do BASIC on Japanese consoles. And there is an FM Towns. Lovely little machines those are, aren't they? With, of course, an FM Towns Marti right next to it. So yep, as you can see, we've got a lot of documentation for all these machines. There's an example exactly of what I'm talking about, a ZX81 with a contemporary fuller case added to it. Lovely, nice keys to use. You don't have to use that horrible membrane shit. It's lovely, isn't it? And there's an SX64, a portable Commodore 64. That is portable back in the 1980s. The Enterprise 128, a micro that didn't necessarily do well at the time, but is generally regarded as one of the better micros released in the 1980s, although there were many of them. This display is not from the 128. This is from various other machines. Obviously, we've got the links here. We have the VG5215, which I believe is where that weird display of the fish is coming from. As you can see, they've got AZERTY keylayouts, which marks them down as consoles from the mainland. And there's good old Bamba Boozler. He'd be there with some quiz fun, brought out of retirement, and free on Nextel for you if you happen to have access to it. More nudes. Lovely. A Syndata PA. This was stuff from the Binary Dinosaurs. Oh my goodness, look at that. The Binary Dinosaurs label. The most beige box I think I've ever seen. Everything they're wearing is beige, they are beige, and I think that has a beige filter with it. That's the Videopack G7000. And something from the G7000 that would become almost an obsession over the course of the weekend was this circus-like game for it called Leaping Acrobats. Seriously, it was so strange, and a lot of us couldn't stop playing it. Let's have a look into Quan and a fellow trying their luck.
Yeah, this is not confusing at all. Literally every time you hit the board, the other person takes over.
Yeah.
That's and there's a block in the middle.
Let's take away the cap. Number 2.
Right. You first.
That death animation don't get old.
It is ridiculous.
It's crazy. Isn't it?
So frustrating.
The faces of pain.
Come on. Yes.
Yeah, oh, let him go, come on.
So many balloons.
It's Breakout. But if Breakout hated you. Oh, yeah. God, he's in control.
Where were you?
I think that was you, wasn't it?
This could cause serious fights.
We've got individual scores, so it doesn't really matter.
This game is ridiculous.
That game was frustrating as all get out, believe me. And did you see that death animation? We'll have more fun from Leaping Acrobats later. In the meantime, here's a nice little demo from Rusty Pixels, and this happened to be running on the ZX Spectrum Next, which made an appearance on the Saturday to show off its re-res. Naturally, I had to get some close-ups of it, as I always do. Here's something cool. This is an Executel. There's 2 of these, one that a boss would have, another that a secretary would have, and so they can kind of talk to each other and see what everyone's doing in this form. A lovely little bit of 1980s communication. Up next, I believe, we have a bit of programming on the ZX Spectrum Next. This is a ZX Spectrum Next Basic, and this is kind of the sort of things you can do with it when it comes to calling up sprites. You can get stuff like that quite easily. Sure beats mind out, doesn't it? And speaking of ZX Spectrum, here's a cool little prototype of a microdrive that the museum had recently got in.
And then you would have a chewed up tape on your hand because it would pull that loop out.
Slowly put it in.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, he said he had no say in the QL one. And the QL one takes the cartridge in and then dips slightly, so the tape comes out at a slightly wrong angle. That's why they just don't work properly.
Spindles are slightly too low, so if they go out of the line, it just chews everything up.
But Rick Dickinson was very pleased to see this. He was very pleased that one had survived. Because he thought they were all gone. Apparently, I think there was 2 of them. But otherwise, the same on the bottom. And, yeah, because this guy, I think he's the DO2 development too. So it's cool. Yeah, but Mr. John Williams there, he designed all the working mechanism, the expansion slots.
Miniature electrode.
And it came in with a box of absolute junk, like these things do.
Yeah.
And
Of course. Emailer.
yeah, so I don't know if you want any of this stuff. And we just happened to see this clear lid, and we were like, "What's that?" Plucked it out, and it was like, first we thought, "Was that a custom one?" And then we spoke to Rick Dickinson, and he said, "No." He said, "I can tell by the sharp edges." So that's one we were working on from the start. So That's really cool.
That's amazing.
Just something else. Another wonderful donations we get given. Go and show the RCM guys now.
No, hey, look at this.
Now, this next section here, to me, was one of the most interesting things from the whole weekend. These all belong to a man named Richard Atkinson, and he collects clone machines. You see the hordes of Dendies, all sorts of Soviet-era clones of Spectrum and other consoles from Russia, the Ukraine, Brazil, Argentina, I believe, even some of them. A lot of made in Taiwan stuff, some other consoles here and there. This was all his material, and I couldn't end up helping getting into quite a lengthy chat with him where he showed off even more cool stuff, and we generally had a good chat about the state of collecting for clones and how someone would even get into such a thing. It's quite a long chat, at nearly 10 minutes long, but hopefully if you listen to it all, I'm sure you'll agree there's quite a lot of interesting stuff to be had, including a Mega Drive clone that looks quite a lot like a computer. Anyway, let's get into Richard and see what he has to say.
Super Bits Man.
I'm guessing it's going to be a
Is this
Famicom
a Brazilian? No.
Is this a Famicom or a Mega Drive clone?
It is actually a Mega Drive clone, okay.
Do you know what country this was from?
Country, Russia.
Russia?
They're made in Taiwan.
What?
There's a whole load like that made from one company in Taiwan, making them all over the place.
Expansion?
Well, you've got the extension
I
there?
think it will run a Mega CD. I'm not sure. You've got that one like
I don't know, yeah. Is it there for a reason or is it there just for show?
So the other one of those has got the region switches on it.
Yeah.
Color C switch and language switch.
Ah.
From the factory, which is quite nice.
So when abouts did they make that then? Was it?
When?
Yeah.
We can get the date codes off the chips. I've got some pictures of it opened up. It's going to be in the 90s, 92.
Well, no, I was like contemporary.
Yeah, so this one has, this is kind of like the one that would have been on Bad Influence TV show.
Lowercase systems.
As the Scorpion 16, when Violet Berlin and Andy Crane were looking at this thing. So underneath this one switch there and one switch there.
Right.
It's their universal cartridge system that lets them run all the Mega Drive games.
Awesome.
And I think the one on the TV show even had a little compartment about here where you could fit a Mega Drive PCB, and you could.
Because that one had a little compartment.
It may have done. I don't think it's all fitted on
back.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of ghost of it. If you actually take that off, I don't think it's there. There's nothing. You would have fitted it onto an extra cartridge slot about here, something like that. But they were halfway through giving up with it there, and they've got it.
And then they just decided.
I got a few more Mega Drive clones.
Oh.
This one here, that looks like a real Mega Drive one.
Accurate, yeah.
But
back to Japanese.
It's a clone.
But then, yeah.
That's not how they really are.
No, it's not.
And I've got pictures of these inside, but I'll show you them outside. Every single one of these Mega Drive 2s is a clone and has a different circuit board inside. What's underneath the expansion slots really varies quite a lot. That's got a full expansion slot.
And these are again Taiwan.
I imagine they are. That one has a full expansion slot. Yeah. They don't all. I can't tell you if you can fit a Mega CD on there. I don't know if it'll work. You never know how fully they've implemented the Mega Drive chipset.
See if you can get Tower of Power.
there we go. That's not the Mega Drive expansion slot. And as I recall, there's two that are fairly fully, quite a few chips, and then there are two that have more or less just one big chip and a few other things. So there's different levels of integration of Mega Drive that they've cloned.
Yeah.
Different eras of Mega Drive. And they all look the same on the outside, they're not the same on the inside.
But there's all got little differences. Oh, very nice.
I know there's one was a built-in game, like 500 games built into it.
Oh, that's much later on. Yeah, you've got to have ROM chip technology that's big enough to take 500 games, and not in this period you couldn't do that yet. This is still the 90s. Nowadays, 500 Famicom games. If you want to see one more weird Mega Drive, this is a Mega Drive clone. There's a cartridge that you can put in there that gives you various teaching type things, and if you put a normal Mega Drive game in there, you'll get a normal Mega Drive game.
Wow.
It's Chinese. Yeah, that's really just composite video and audio.
Yeah.
Don't think it's stereo. It's in a bit of a mess, this one, but it came from Ukraine of all places.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it has got Cyrillic on it.
Yeah.
It's Itsukan keyboard. And it's got QWERTY as well. But it didn't have a BASIC, and I was so disappointed. I really wanted a Mega Drive BASIC. Like you can get Famicom and Sega BASIC, but the pirates hadn't written the BASIC.
So how did you end up amassing all these?
I have a very good friend in St. Petersburg who sent me the Russian stuff here. I have a very, very good friend or a few in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, who sent me those. And I have some very good friends in Argentina who sent me the Argentinian stuff here. And the rest just comes from eBay. And
Just on eBay, just getting them and they'll come out.
yeah, that's right.
What got you interested?
Well, I kind of collected the UK stuff between about 94 and 2000.
Yeah.
And then I went to uni, came back, and I stopped being able to go to the boot fairs quite so much. But I also realised that my UK collection was kind of filling out of what I really wanted.
Yeah.
So it was time to start buying other stuff, and then I moved on to buying MSX stuff from Holland and Japan. And then Tandy Color Computer stuff from America, Australia, France, those are the main places. And then a few more years passed, and that's when I started talking to my Brazilian friends. They were next, and then my Russian friend in St. Petersburg, and then the Argentinian friends are the most recent. Because once you have Commodore 64s and Commodore 128s and Spectrums and Amstrads and all that stuff from the UK, you can't really...
I suppose, like, where do you go next? And
you have to go somewhere else.
this is a path that not many people, I suppose, have really taken down.
Yeah.
You just find like-minded people.
My particular history involves me meeting my Russian wife in 2015. And at that time, there was someone selling Oriole BK08 Spectrum clones from Ukraine on eBay. They were brand new. They were a sort of warehouse find. So quite a lot of people were buying them, and I was aware of them. They were expensive. I hadn't bought any of them yet, and when they met her, I decided I'll go and buy some of those Russian Spectrum clones now, because it'll help me learn Russian. And then after that, well, that's given me permission to buy Russian stuff. Anything else?
So in terms of these...
Oh, and then I bought pirate Nintendos as well.
Of course,
they're from Russia.
Yeah. In terms of these clones, is there a holy grail? That's something that's like...
Oh, well, so the thing about these is they come from countries where the official Western companies were not operating.
No.
So, is there a holy grail in Russia for Russian Dendy stuff and Russian Spectrum stuff? You have to ask the Russians. Is there a holy grail Grail in Brazil for the Brazilians. I mean, I do know some of the Holy Grails. In Russia, these early Dendies are fairly nice, fairly sought after. I wouldn't say they're the Holy Grail; they're too common for that. But they were expensive in the day, and so you were a rich kid if you had one of these in 1993.
You had like son of a government official or something. I presume.
Had to be quite rich. There was something of a recession on, and the cartridges that have that company's name on the back, Steepler, they now go for as much as the machines.
Really?
They are expensive, so I haven't bought many of them. In Brazil, there are certain color computer clones that are very rare. And my friend Marcus has I think it's a ColecoVision clone. It's a one-off. It's a prototype that was never made. It was given to him a few years ago. So that's a Holy Grail.
That's definitely a Holy Grail.
Well, I do have to apologise because this next bit is entirely silly. Me and Cran somehow got addicted to trying to get Joe Blade 2 of all games running on the ZX Spectrum Next because it has a loading game inside it. Let's just look in and see how it went. Sorry. So just so you know what's going on here, how did we even get onto this? Do you even remember, Cran? We were talking about loaders, and we remembered that there was a game that had a loading game, which we eventually figured out was Joe Blade 2. And we wanted to see if the Spectrum Next, which is here, would actually be able to run the loader. But we needed to find a TAP file, which wasn't available on internet. So what have you had to do in order to get this TAP file for Joe Blade 2?
We managed to find the TZX file for Joe Blade 2, but the Spectrum Next won't play the TZX file, which is a shame. So we had to convert it over to the TAP file, but the tools used to do that are in Python. So we had to install Python onto my Mac, but my Mac has Python 2.7 whatever. So we had to download Python 3, then install pip for that, work out the right command, and then convert, once it's downloaded out, install TZX tools, and then convert the TZX to a TAP file. So we now have it as a TAP file. Hopefully this should work.
In the meanwhile, you've knocked a couple of back-end services because you've changed the version of Python.
Yeah, probably. I'll probably knackered my Mac now.
Ghosts in the machine. Gremlins.
What's two? You want 12 you want?
Oh, just fat fingers.
+2? She's +2.
Yeah, just +2. Yeah.
Bear in mind, I don't know how to drive one of these.
Find out.
Okay. That's not what we want.
That's not what we want. Should we do that again?
We're professionals.
Yes, exactly.
I'll not touch it.
So don't tell you. Let's not touch that.
That's what my mum always said.
Yeah. No, you see, it's loaded that ROM again.
Oh, let's clear that ROM again.
It's quite helpful that. So
We don't have to do the menu again, don't we?
Yes.
Thank God there's no amateurs here.
So I presume we would want next, go for next V1.07. I'm sure that'd be the one. Probably wouldn't be the 48K one. Yeah, that one. Let's go that one. That's probably right.
This is modern, I don't do modern. That's better.
That was it, wasn't it? So yeah, now you can run the browser. JB2.tab. That one there. Right, and then tape. Yeah, T for tape loading simulation for that on. S for standard. Do it. Right. Okay. Now we wait.
Would you like to simulate the noises while we're doing it?
Yes. Turn the volume up.
Yeah.
That's true, we can't do it.
Will. It's doing it.
Oh, hey.
Oh, this is so exciting.
Load again by Andy 7. Andy, you're a hero.
I was just going to say, we love you, Andy.
So while the game's on Play 2, there's a game in the loader. You can play a game while the game's loading. Oh no.
But we run it on.
Oh, yeah.
It does.
It's currently not doing it. There's not. Doesn't seem to be. The Spectrum Next is not compatible with Joe Blade 2 loader game. I'm sure that breaks everyone's heart. You don't know my audience. So, mission failed. We'll get them next time. Oh dear.
So yes, the long and short of all that nonsense is that we failed utterly, for the simple reason that we couldn't actually find a TAP file or anything like that of Joe Blade 2, only a TZX file, which NX doesn't really support yet. And no amount of wanking with Python was really going to be able to fix that. But hey ho, here's some more leaping acrobats, hide the pain I suppose. And again, just want you to wait for this horrifying death example. I cannot stress how difficult this game is to actually play around with. We kind of ended up having a bit of a high score competition over the weekend to see just who could get the best score in this game, and you'll find out who ran in the next part. Here's some more of these cool stuff that you can find regularly in the museum. This is something new that I think hasn't been here before. A Sinclair PC200. A fairly rare, I suppose. You don't often see these, but it is, of course, a Sinclair IBM PC clone. Nice. And it's running Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a lovely Infocom classic. Here's some more of the cool stuff on display. A nice little run around, a nice little crowd shot. It was getting quite busy by the day's end. Oh, we can see this beautiful little Viglin keyboard here and a nice little wood grain PC. CPC 664, big chunky arrow buttons, one in everyone's a Wally. And we also have some nice little Macintoshes here. And as to one of the few Macintosh good games that are really good, good old Oregon Trail. Oh, nice little tiny monitor here, tiny little Atari monitor. Now here's something that's going to be very cool in the next episode. Of course, this is really cool as well. It's an Amiga 4000, for heaven's sake. But what's running on these machines is also very cool. They're running bulletin boards. Now, I didn't even know that bulletin boards were still a thing, but apparently they are. They're certainly a thing on the Amiga, the 64, and the Amstrad 6128 here. And we'll have more explained about in next week's episode from the Sunday. Inevitably, any old machine's going to have some sort of Space Invaders running on it, isn't it? It's just a fact of life by this point. This is one of the coolest things ever, the Amstrad PPC 640. Another portable, I'm sure you can even see the speech marks, or you can hear them rather, a portable machine. This is the Enterprise 128 running some IK. Nice machine, nice load of colours. That joystick is stiff as a board, I have to say. Another game running on a little sharp fin here. Personal computer. Look at that big tape deck. God, it's so lovely, isn't it? They don't make them like these anymore, do they? Which is kind of a good thing in the case of the Sinclair QL. Sharp MZ80, again, so lovely and boxy. This was, seriously, it was rare computer heaven, and it was wonderful spending time here at this museum for the weekend. But we're far from done yet. This is all just stuff from the first day. There'll be plenty more stuff from the second day. There'll be some more cool stuff about clone machines. There'll be some more cool exhibits from the museum. Some other stuff that's not necessarily just microcomputers. And a real holy grail that one of the people just had to show off. Oh, and of course more jumping acrobats or whatever it's called. Anyway, see you next week for part 2. So long! Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, then hey, why don't you like it and subscribe and have a look at my social media. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook or wherever the social media things I have on there are. Or, if you really want to get where the action is, you could get to my Patreon and join this list of awesome people here. Alexa Jones-Gonzalez, Andrew Dalton, Andy Capt, Asobi Kwan DX, Brian Hennigar, Chris Pode, Cody Spooner, Conrad Pritchard, D. Zalior, Rimwan Sutter, Daniel Briggs, Dave Cork, David Rose, Dinty76538, Dustin Cooper, Gary Samaden, Geordie Alex, Ian Roberts, James Brown, Jason Stevens, Jace Alexander, Jeff Ladd, Lee Norris, Lukas Kuligovsky, Mateus Gramzov, Martin Pataki, Potter Margel, Renbimon, Rusty Kelly, Samir Alamar, Seth Robinson, Simon Gulliver, Tim Wald, Wilbo, Yerka Operator, and Zach Roach, and all the rest of the community. Thank you, and goodbye.